the Baen Free Radio Hour.
Today on the Baen Free Radio Hour, Hailey H.Y. Gregor speaks with beloved author Wen Spencer about her latest novel in the Black Wolves of Boston series, Black Ties and Tales. And we continue to bring you the amazing Mark Van Name's John and Lobo novel, One Jump Ahead.
All right, there is the end of our countdown. It looks like we are live. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Baen Free Radio Hour. I am Hailey H.Y. Gregor, your host today, and I have the distinct pleasure of bringing you guys Wen Spencer aboard to discuss her latest release, which is Black Tie and Tales. It is the second book in the Black Wolves of Boston series. Releases on September 2nd, so we've brought her today. She is the author of a number of titles that wasn't worth trying to read all of them to you guys because there were too many, but that includes the Elf Home series, and then the first book of this particular series, the Black Wolves of Boston. So thank you, Wen, so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me, Hailey.
Would you give us just a brief introduction of yourself? Anything else I didn't touch that you want us to know?
Well, I'm a science fiction fantasy author. I've got 16 books and a scattering of short stories. I never can keep track of them. I'm the 2003 winner of the Astounding Award for Best New Writer. I grew up in Pittsburgh. I lived in Boston for a while, and then needing to escape snow, I moved to Hawaii. And I've been here 15 years now.
See, and I love the snow, but I'm glad that Hawaii is treating you well. Excellent. All right. And now that we have sorted out the time zone debacle, thank you so much. First things first for this, we have this novel, which is book 2 in your series. For people who are coming at it fresh or are about to pick up book 1, could you give us a really quick rundown of book 1, kind of set the stage for us and where we're headed into book 2?
Okay. This is the hardest part of being a writer, is having to talk about your stuff where you have a massive 150,000 words that you need to compact down into one paragraph. In the first book, we meet Joshua. He's a teenage boy. He's always bullied at school, and he really wants to go off to college. So he's joined all the committees, including the prom committee, trying to get fit in with the popular kids. And they're putting on this haunted house at this remote barn when a werewolf shows up and there's a massacre, and he's the only survivor. And he knows that he's now a werewolf. And he's afraid of hurting people because he's bullied all the time, and he's not sure if he can control his temper. So he runs off to Boston, and there he meets Decker. He's a 300-year-old vampire with a hoarding problem, and his house is just overflowing with a century of trash, and he's deeply depressed. And he comes up with this idea that Joshua can be his housemaid, guardian dog, whatever, and clean out the house. And they start into this trying to get Joshua a new life in Boston. But it turns out that the whole massacre at the barn was triggered by these witches known as Wickers, which use blood magic to create these wooden constructs. And they're chasing after Joshua. And then into this fray comes 2 other characters. There's the Prince of Boston, who's the head of the werewolf pack, Seth, who's 16 years old, and Elise, who is a Gregor virtue, and she fights monsters. With those 4 point of views, it's a very confusing and long book and difficult to talk about.
Being able to summarize it and get it all down to, like you said, a couple paragraphs is no small feat. Excellent. All right. So leading into this, I was not familiar with book one. And so
Okay.
this was awesome because I felt you did a great job kind of setting the stage, getting me involved, reminding me what had happened already.
Hmm.
So let us know, where does book one, or excuse me, where does book two start? Set the stage for us.
I have a timing issue. People tease me because I write like the TV show 24 hours. Um, my books tend to be like a week long or 2 weeks long. And this book is actually like 3 days after the first book ends. And Joshua is going off to the school that is owned by the Boston Pack. And he's nervous because he isn't sure that he can control himself now that he's a werewolf. And of
And
course,
he's really, go
ends
ahead.
up in a whole new mess that starts out with him having this dream of a talking penguin. And things go downhill from there.
So I know that I sent you a list of some things. I'm going to go a little off script. I added some stuff. Why penguins? Tell us.
I actually had this dream one night where I'm at an aquarium and I'm talking to a penguin, and it's very short tempered and yelling at me. And I woke up and thought, wow, that was a weird dream. Joshua has this happen to him. And it just went from there. And God knows I have weird dreams. Last night I was dreaming I was flying over my parents' farm and somebody was fly fishing. And I kept up almost getting caught by the hooks as they were doing the wild cast. Weird dreams. And I just run with it. Oh, that was cool. Let's go with it.
Novel fodder, for sure. So
Of
coming out
course,
of book one, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
once you just randomly throw something out like that, you have a hard time coming up with a logical plot to go around it. So that's when it gets tricky.
I thought it worked great. It was a great opening chapter. I was totally hooked. So coming out of book one, what do you think that readers enjoyed the most that you were excited to incorporate moving into book two?
I think that what I heard a lot of is that people like the idea that it's dark fantasy elements, but then things take ridiculous turns. And the characters are trying to live a normal life. So in the first book, it was Thanksgiving and the whole trying to have Thanksgiving dinner when they'd never cooked before, and just all the silliness that kind of dealing with things that you're not used to in a down the home way, but taken to ridiculous. I had a lot of fun with it, and people seemed to like it a lot.
Taking the relatable and twisting it just a
Yeah,
little, making it more exciting.
yeah,
Yeah, my first Thanksgiving that I had to cook was an adventure, and there weren't vampires involved, so I can relate to that one. Or Christmas, right?
yeah.
So, with that in mind, then you took that, you added some of those things to book two. Was there anything particular that you really enjoyed writing?
Um, all of it, none of it. I love writing, but it's so hard sometimes. It drives you a little bit nutty. But I really enjoyed the ridiculous moments of things where Joshua's trying to do things like go to school and be a student, and this penguin is chasing him around the school, and nobody else sees it. And teachers are asking him questions like, "What's wrong with you?" And he's like, "Look at the penguin, look at the teacher, look at the penguin, look at the teacher." So I had a lot of fun with that.
Oh. I am in a pickle. Well, and I loved that there were a lot of really serious topics and, themes that you hit that were heavy hitters that you balanced out really well with some of the humor. And it was age appropriate, and that I felt like everyone was kind of reacting realistically to, some of the more ridiculous things that they had to go through. I thought it was awesome. Um, so with that, we had talked a little bit about some of the research that you did.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of things did you find yourself looking up or trying to figure out to kind of make the story work?
Well, as I was telling you earlier, I'm a really messy writer, so I just throw things in and then have this, how do I make this make sense? So a lot of my research is basically, oh, I want this. What is close to that? And I'd known early on that I wanted penguins, and penguins, of course, all live in Antarctica, and I kind of wanted some kind of sea-related thing. And I was posting things on my Patreon, and my patrons started going, this is just like Lovecraft. And I hadn't actually read much Lovecraft, and I'm like, oh shit, oh no, people are going to think I'm ripping them off. So I actually did have to sit down and read a whole lot of Lovecraft and then go, okay, at the very surface, yeah, I've got a sea monster, but no, his sea monsters are actually outer space aliens, and I'm kind of doing a riff on the Mesopotamian creation story. And he has penguins, yes, but they're just giant birds that are used for food. And mine are actually swan maidens who talk and have a whole culture and can, get on an airplane and fly to Boston kind of deal, where no, that's not what Lovecraft was doing. So, and then they're both based in New England, but I set my books in New England for the same reason he did. We both lived there. So yeah, that was one of the things where I went off and did actual research on that. And most of the times, though, it's kind of like, how does he get from point A to point B? Let me walk on Street View. Let me see what he sees. Can you could actually get there from here? Oh, you have to take this roundabout way that readers will know. That's one of the tricky things of writing urban fantasy, is that your readers have a chance of knowing. And since I lived in Boston, I had actually said another book in Boston, and I was at a convention, and I really need to get the details right. And they're like, no, you don't have to. And I'm like, well, if I say that the red line has a closing message that says this, you guys are all going to say, no, that's not what it is. And half the room is like, no, we would never do that. And the other half is going, actually, the closing message is just a dinging. And I'm like, there, that's why I need it right.
So were there any particular places that you had really enjoyed or visited while you were living there that made their way into the book?
Actually, no. I was kind of a hermit. I didn't go a whole lot of places. I did go to the aquarium once with my kid. But it was a little bit hard because he's autistic, and he was like 5 at the time. And at 5, he was bolting, wild, crazy creature. It wasn't until later in life that he calmed down and you could actually take him places. We took him to Japan. We took him to Russia. We took him to China. We could take him around. But at that point in time, it was kind of like having a wild monkey. So the aquarium was kind of like, we're leaving now.
So, okay, I have to ask then, where did you spend time in Russia, and did that impact the story? Because there's a little bit of influence, obviously.
Not really much. We had taken a cruise, and we stopped at Vladivostok. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we spent the day there. and we basically walked around the harbor. There was a lot of sailors there. We got to watch them crash the two of their naval ships. It was very funny, embarrassing for them. So my touching on Russian is just kind of there. My family does have my husband's family has a slight fascination with Russia because they were Croatian Yugoslavia. Their name is Kozak, which was actually shortened from Kozakovich. And some distant cousin was in the KGB. So, which we found out because uncle-in-law was a cryptographer doing crypto for Navy. And he had to get a security pass. And they're like, you've got family in Russia that's in the KGB. And it's like, I didn't know that.
The background ping. Very cool. Yeah. Well, I love that. I thought those integrations actually really grounded the story pretty well. So the tiny little things, like we had talked about the Russian lullaby that you referenced. Mm-hmm. Do you want to let us know a little bit about that one?
Well, I had set the one character being Russian, and the fact that certain people could speak Russian and certain people can't is actually this huge clue for something that's going on in the background that only a few people seem to pick up. But the character is Russian, and I wanted her to be singing something that a child would sing because she was singing to a kindergartner. And so I did a quick search and basically found this one song. And since it mentioned wolves, I was like, okay, this one. I try not to get too much research done ahead of time because I find it creates blocks because I get into this head that I must do this. Originally, the whole story was actually going to be Russian mafia moving into Boston. And the Swan Maids were these ninjas, and it was like completely different. And I had to throw it all away because it did not make any sense. And Russian mafia really was kind of overpowered by the werewolves. So I'm like, okay, I need to get more serious bad guys. And it has to be related very tightly to the penguins. And that's when I started going off to, okay, it's a sea monster that's tied to the origins of the penguin swan maidens. But, the messy process for me to get to a final book.
I think it's fascinating. I loved, because you know the Selkie myths and the swan princess, right? Like Tchaikovsky. Mm-hmm. I loved how you took that and kind of put it on its head and added penguins and turned it into your own thing. Which leads me into one of my other questions. So you are dealing with kind of, urban fantasy, a little bit of YA, because you've got teenagers, high school mm-hmm. main characters. You've got werewolves, you've got vampires, you have this whole kind of pantheon of gods and everything that you're dealing with. And mm-hmm. some of those tropes have been hit really hard, right? Like vampires and werewolves are awesome, mm-hmm. so they're in a ton of books. You did a great job, I thought, of kind of putting your own spin on that. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Well, I actually don't like how people do most werewolves and vampires. Yes. Because one of the things is that they kind of do this almost every single werewolf story I've run across. It's some random person who's just walking down the street, suddenly gets jumped by a very violent, antisocial person who bites them and then does the, aha, now you have to be part of my pack. And we're all violent, horrible people. And you were just a normal human being and you can't run away from us. normally. And I was like, but wolves themselves are communal. They're a mother and a father and a bunch of young ones that when they grow up, they become kind of satellite to the next generation as kind of like uncles. And I really wanted to do more like if you had the Jungle Book wolves, but they're werewolves instead of what's normally happened. So I kind of did this. Okay, once upon a time they had that violent, random people are attacked, but that was 2,000 years ago. They've had 2,000 years of no, we don't bring strangers into this. We have children. And part of that is the mythos of, you can't control your change. You change with the moon, so, you abort babies right and left. I'm like, no, we're not doing that. You can control your change, so you don't have this whole abortion problem. And just go with that. And then I did with the alpha. I was like, okay, the magic of the alpha is a lot cooler than just, I'm the strongest werewolf. It actually lets them tie into the land around where the pack lives and help stabilize it against outside magical influences. And that this magical power actually is kind of like a separate realm that ties into all the other weird things that are going on. And that when the alpha dies, it's not automatically his firstborn son. It actually randomly picks the strongest, the person most likely to be able to bear the weight, because it's very powerful magic and it can kill somebody who's not strong enough. So I came up with this is why they're not like everybody else's werewolves. So, and then with the vampire, I'm not crazy about the blood sucking thing. So I came up with the idea that blood in this world is life force power that you can use. And that what Decker really does is he siphons magic off of monsters and people who are magical. So monsters, if he kills it, he sucks all the power out of it. But people that have magic, he can basically sit off of them and there's no blood involved. And it's like, yes, that's kind of wussy, but I don't like the cold, blood-sucking vampires. I like cool, long-lived people who are powerful and have magic. So I went more with that kind of idea of vampire.
All right, I have 2 follow-up questions. And I'm going to ask you which direction you want to go first.
Okay.
So we can talk about the physical manifestations of your wolves and the controlling that magic kind of a thing, because I thought that was fascinating. Or we can talk about Decker, because he kind of cracked me up. So
Let's talk about Decker.
Okay. So in a lot of ways, he's kind of a man out of time, right? He is 300 years old.
300.
I hope that's not a spoiler. And so he has all of these kind of interesting relationships with modern technology and modern phrasing, right? So I'm curious what kind of things you were thinking about, how you decided what he should or shouldn't be familiar with, those kinds of things, like whether you had a ton of fun writing him, because he's great.
Well, I love writing Decker. He's actually slightly based on my husband, who just has this habit of, I thought of something funny, but I'll probably get hit if I say it out loud. I can't stop myself. I have to say it out loud. So
we love those people.
And a bit of Decker is actually me from my childhood to me now. Because, I grew up when you have the TV set, you turn it on with a button, We had 3 channels growing up. We didn't have cable. Cable still hasn't come to my parents' house. And we had a party line on our phone. And the bathroom in the house was the first working bathroom when my older sister was born. Otherwise, the house had a latrine outside. So I grew up in a very kind of rural, rustic. And now it's like, okay, you're going on a trip. You're going to go through this airport. The only way you can buy food in this airport is use your phone, and you've got to scan this weird square thing and then do something. And I'm like, I don't know what the next step is. And I'm hungry. Like stopping strangers going, how do you do this? So the bit of it is Decker's me trying to deal with the changes in technology. I had rented a car 2 years ago, and I got in and I couldn't figure out how to turn it on because it was a push button automatic, and I had learned on a stick, and I didn't know what to do, and I accidentally put it in neutral, and I'm drifting down through the parking lot. I don't think it's on. I'm not positive. Don't think it's on. So I finally got it into the park, and I walked over and said, I rented this car. I'm going to need help turning it on. So the little bit is me and trying to deal with the changes of technology, but then just taken to extreme because he's from 300 years ago when America was quite different. And with him, I always have to do something like he talking about a zoo. I'm like, when was the first zoo in America? After Decker became a vampire. He's never been to one. When did they invent this? Okay, he was 100 years old when that happened, so he's not real familiar with it. So,
What's a penguin? I love
that. I had a lot of fun writing that. I just loved the whole idea of show him the animation of penguins talking. Like, okay, you're telling me that penguins don't talk, but you're showing me that they do.
Yeah, there were a lot of really great references, and I love Penguins of Madagascar, and that was great. So, like I said, it was a great hook. You had a great opener there, and the relationship between the two of them is awesome. You have a lot of really kind of poignant themes about sort of found family. Are there specific things emotionally that you hope your readers will resonate with for some of those things?
Yeah. My family actually is very much into found family. When I was small, we had foster children constantly in and out to the point where I didn't know why some kids came and went and some stayed. We almost adopted one little boy who would have been, I had thought he was my little brother, and I was quite traumatized when, no, he went away and never came back again. I have a lot of brother themes in my writing, and it took me a while to realize, oh, that's because I had a little brother and he went away. And my family has a tendency to adopt random people, where, here's somebody unfortunate and we have a place in the home. So, yeah, they can move in. So, found family just seems a natural part of life to me.
I am not surprised at all to hear that from you, having just met you or just started speaking with you based on reading this book, because it was integrated so well and so beautifully in so many ways. Because I think everyone at some point has kind of felt like they were alone, or that things weren't quite working out the way that they wanted to, and that like connection, being able to find somebody who's willing to take you in and kind of take you by the hand and be there for you, is really important. So you did great at that. It was awesome.
Thank you.
Okay. This will bring me then to, I want to talk about your wolves.
Okay.
And if you feel that anything is too much of a spoiler, let me know and we'll shut it down because I don't want to ruin it.
I actually like spoilers and stuff so that you know where the story is coming. Not to dish or anything, but I actually had trouble going into the whole Harry Potter things because I was reading it as an adult. I was an already adult when they came out. I had children by then and a child, and I kept on doing, no, adults who are teachers wouldn't do this. No, adults wouldn't. And it was only after I watched the video, I'm like, okay, we're seeing Harry's point of view when you get to see somebody else's point of view, because the movie, of course, can't really do Harry's point of view tight and closed like the books are written. So you as an adult watching the movie are like, oh, of course. But the books, it was harder to make that leap of, there's this machination behind the scenes that you're not seeing. And I was just like, teachers wouldn't do that. Also because my families are all teachers, so I'm kind of biased.
It's a little. All right, I will tell Griffin then to put like a spoiler warning on this.
Okay.
So as you discussed when you were kind of running down book one, Joshua is dealing with all of these crazy new things, right? Like suddenly he is a werewolf when he didn't even know that that was a family thing. And obviously there's a lot going on there. And he kind of sometimes has control and other times he blinks and there's steak in his shopping cart that he doesn't know how it got there. So I'm super curious kind of how you developed the relationship that they have with their wolves and how the transformation, everything kind of works.
Huge spoiler.
Yeah, it's like I said, we don't have to talk about it if you don't want.
Well, this is kind of like book 3 and 4. We find out that Joshua is an extremely powerful wolf. And one of the reasons why he has so much trouble controlling the wolf is he's tapping hard into the source that is the werewolf magic. And somebody who has the normal pack level connection has an easier time controlling the wolf than he does. And it's this huge influx of power that's making it more difficult than normal for him. Sometimes I did it because it was just so much fun to do and it was silly and ridiculous and let's go for it. And part of me kept on going, nah, I should take this out. But I'm like, no, it's so much fun. No, I should take it out. But I decided to leave it in. And occasionally pulled it back a little bit. But other times where I said, no, this is too good. Just leave it there.
Well, and the wolf had its own kind of manifestations, its own personality.
Mm-hmm.
And there are moments where, he's interacting with it kind of externally in a way that not everyone can notice or pay attention to. I thought that was great.
Thank you.
All right. So with that, you have some other creatures and some other pantheons and things that you touch on where it comes to things like the sea hags. And I'm going to pronounce this wrong. Aptenidites.
I have no idea how to pronounce that. It was funny because the narrator of the Audible book got hold of me and was like doing, is it Elise or Les? Or is it this or is it that? Or is it, and I'm like, I've never pronounced these names out loud in my life. And I actually can't pronounce certain things. In one of my earlier series, the Yukayo one, I named a character Cal. Kyle. I can't say it right. I say cow. And people are like, no, it's K-Island. And I'm like, cow. So I actually hurt anybody who tries to pronounce things correctly because no, I can't. A lot of times I don't even make the effort. I told the narrator, your guess is as good as mine.
As a longtime fantasy reader,
Yeah.
when I was a little kid, there's the whole, joke that you mispronounce a word because you've only read it, you've never heard it out loud. But I feel like for fantasy readers, that is so much worse because there are all of these made up fantastical words and you have it in your head that it's pronounced a certain way, and then you listen to the audiobook and the narrator makes you really angry or upsets you because you're like, oh no, I've been doing this wrong for I don't know how many years.
I think the other reason why is I was in a Pern fan club when I was in my 20s, and there was a harper whose name was basically guitar bastardized a little bit down, so it was G apostrophe T-A-N. And I thought, if you're going from guitar, it's obviously Gatan. We would get together at conventions and G-Tan, J-Tan, Boo-Tan. The way the people would mispronounce this character's name, I'm like, it doesn't matter. It's whatever trips you trigger.
Sorry, who are you talking about? I love it. I'm so glad I'm not the only one that struggles with that. It's great, right? It's part of the fun.
Yeah.
Because if you can engage people and have people arguing about how to pronounce things, like as far as I'm concerned, that means that you are a successful author, right? You've done your job because people care enough, right? All right. So
Sometimes
with that,
they
then
care too much.
they're reading your books. That's great.
Yeah.
All right. So with your sea hags, and I'm gonna say aptenodite.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna go with that.
Okay.
Did you have any particular inspiration for some of those kinds of creatures that are more unique to just your books?
The Tenedites were basically, how can I do swan maiden penguins and make it kind of make sense? And the whole idea that swan maidens are actually a worldwide idea. You've got the Japanese cranes, and you've got bat ones down in Micronesia, and just all over the place. The whole idea that birds can turn into people seems to be a universal. But I needed to make it make sense to me because I have to explain this in a way that it makes sense. So I kind of just did okay, let's say that, they started out all kind of bird-like, and then they branched off, and each branch came up to be a different kind of swan maids.
And so it was all, I'm trying to remember based on what I read, all birds. Because I know there's the Selkie myth, right? And they talk a little bit about that with the seals.
Mm-hmm. But that's not swan maids. Those are
right.
silks. I mean, there's a common thread of creatures that can change via clothing.
Okay.
And silkies and swan maidens, but swan maidens are almost all birds.
Right.
And they tend to be good creatures. The ones in Japan, the cranes, they're actually considered divine creatures. There's somewhere in Russia, I think it's the firebirds. The firebirds are usually kind of gift givers that often also need to be rescued by the hero. So, and there's that weird whole bit that most of the Swan Maiden legends also have this little bit of, Swan Maiden's just minding its own business when in comes somebody else and does the, ah ha ha, I have you now.
Yeah, oops. So prior to starting to write this series, Was mythology something that has always been really passionate for you? Because it comes through really clearly that you kind of know what you're talking about.
I go through fits of it. I was really big into it in high school. I took a mythology class in college. I read here and there a bit. I kind of get detoured a lot into Christian religion, kind of just trying to sound out my own beliefs. Because I was raised in the church, but once you start learning the true history, you start having questions of, what do I actually believe?
And you explore that in this as well. So you have your Grigori that you talk about, and you've got the powers, the divinities, and the virtues. If I've got all of those,
The minions.
there we go.
Yeah.
So was any of that impacted by kind of how you were raised or themes you were trying to explore?
Well, I had gone off on this. I was at a youth group retreat, and it was the first time we had a student preacher who was female. The first time I was like, wow, women can be preachers too. Wow. And she had, boom, this is all the books of the Bibles, not just the ones we're taught. And I'm like, you mean not all the books are considered word of God and actual, we have to learn them? And so I've done the whole, what is there and what isn't there? And there's a whole lot they threw out. And the whole Grigori storyline was in the book of Enoch. And that kind of basically was too crazy. Nope, it's not part of our Bible. And it is really wild. Basically, the idea is God put these watchers over earth after the fall of Eden. And watchers is Grigori in Greek. And they saw the human women and went, boy, these are sexy. Let's take a vote and see, should we take them as wives or shouldn't we? And they all voted yes. So they're like, okay, take wives. And there's no implication as to how many wives they took. Of course, in our modern day, we're like, oh, they just took one. But we're talking about ancient Bible times. They could have took 20 of them. And we don't know. We do know that there was something like 200 angels that had been part of this whole deal. And we know the names of the captains of the basically every 10 had a captain, and they named out these captains, and they started having babies, and some of the babies were just really crazy wild, 300 feet tall, and horrible monsters eating things, eating everything, and that was more the reason why the Great Flood happened was, boy, look what happened. We need to get rid of that. Wipe the slate clean. And so I basically said, okay, at that point, what if God basically widowed out the sane ones and said, okay, you guys, you can live, but you have to dedicate your life to hunting monsters. Because I still need somebody to watch over Earth. Now that Eden's gone, there's still monsters there. I still need you. But I'm wiping out all the crazy ones. And that's what I went with. And the names are basically some medieval monk decided he was going to name and order all the angels. And there's like 9 ranks of angels. And he put them in some order, and religion being religion, a couple years later, another monk went, no, he's wrong about all these angels. This is the proper order. So actually, dominions are supposed to be stronger than virtues and powers, but I went, powers sound more powerful than dominion, so we're going to go with powers being more strong. Because what do those medieval monks know?
We wouldn't be human if we didn't find something to argue about, right? All right, so out of all of your characters, who was your favorite to write? Which point of view did you enjoy the most, and why?
Okay, if you're not talking point of view, Winnie Whitebrow was my favorite to write.
Okay.
Just
I can see
because
that, yeah.
she comes out of the blue and says the most ridiculous things that I never see coming. I'm not altogether sure where she comes from, but it's a lot of fun. My favorite bit that she does is when she talks about the car that doesn't need gas, that it's possessed by some kind of spirit. You need to play polka, and you have to do burnt offerings in the form of bratwurst, and occasionally have to pour lager, dark lager, over the tires. And it belonged to her cousin, and then her cousin lost it because he had disconnected the radio, and it got pissed off at him and left. It's just, I don't know where that came from. It was a lot of fun to write it. I never know what she's going to say next.
I love that. When authors talk about, their characters kind of taking over, right? I think you being enthusiastic really shows to us as readers, and that's where we get super excited too.
Yeah. I think point of view, character. Oh, gee, I love them all. It's hard to say. I think Decker, maybe. I have fun with Joshua just because I put him in such ridiculous situations, and then he has to wild take for it. Seth is a lot more mature and grounded, and he's giving me a headache kind of reaction. So, but I like Decker because he's the part of, technology is going faster than I can keep up, and I know this is going to get me hit, but it's so funny I have to say it.
Well, and his relationship with the cat. So, is there a specific cat that we are basing trouble off of?
A little bit off my first cat. Grew up on the farm. We had barn cats, but they were pretty much feral. So the first cat I actually owned was right after I got married, and he's probably the most evil thing you can imagine. I mean, my sister had given me all these beautiful hand-thrown vases, and I had them up high, every one of them off the. He would knock over trash cans and dig embarrassing things out of the trash and leave it around the house. I needed something picked up and delivered into the house, so I asked my sister to come over because I was going to be gone. And she's like, your female products were all through the house. And I'm like, damn, cat.
Of course they were.
Yes. And he's the kind of cat that would do the...
Yeah.
And you're like, that is mine. One time I walked into the kitchen, and when I came back from the dining room, he was sitting in my husband's lap, eating off my husband's plate. And my husband's going, hey, don't do that.
I was like, please, no.
So that was probably my most inspiration for trouble. I love that cat dearly. But,
Yeah.
oh, God, he just did horrible things constantly.
I love animal companions in books. I think they add so much color. He was great. All right, so I'm going to ask, I think, one more question, and then we'll kind of start moving into who you are, where to find you, all the things.
Okay.
Where do you see moving forward, kind of these characters going?
I have seeds planted everywhere of things that's going on with the Wolf King and his son and Seth's wife, Kate, and the relationship between Lise and Cabot. So I've got in my head and in the paper some places to go that I want to get to. But I'm not sure what is going to be the book. One of the stories I want to do is I introduce Kate, but I kind of want to do a road trip with Kate with two of her friends from California to New England. And I've sketched out a couple of scenes for it, but I haven't gotten basically who the bad guy is. That's one of my problems with stories is I have so much fun having the main characters fight among themselves that the villain's kind of like, hey. We're like, just wait a minute. We're still discussing our relationship here. So I've got a lot of relationship with her and her friends before they take off across the country, but I'm not altogether sure basically who the bad guy is that will follow along behind them or, roadblocks them somewhere along the way. So I haven't got that. And I've actually written bits and parts of where I want to end up with Joshua. And that's huge spoilers there. But I had a lot of fun with that too. My patrons basically get to see some of the, this is where we're going with. And does this hint this enough, or does this give too much away, and things like that. So, but
Great plug. Go find her on Patreon. Is it just When Spencer Author? How do we find you?
I think it's just When Spencer. It's patreon.com/c/When Spencer is the URL that I get, but it's basically just search on my name, When Spencer, and it should come up.
So go do that and get all the information up front before anyone else gets it. So
yeah, I tend to post my little bits and pieces. One of the characters that popped up is actually the Elfhelm character. Windwolf's brother Jaybird has suddenly said, I want this book. I've got this cool storyline. Write me. And I'm like, I was in the middle of something. Like, no, write me. So that's what I'm writing right now. And I started a bit for another character, Jane, who's supposed to get married. But I keep on not being able to get the wedding sandwiched into the story. So I decided, okay, I'm just going to do the wedding all by itself. So I have this huge bit of the lead up to the wedding that I still need to finish, but the patrons have gotten to see everything that's leading up to it.
Well, there's always something more to write.
Yeah. I've probably got about 6 projects in the air, and I'm like, I should be writing this, but I'm having fun writing this.
You should be writing, but I'm recording a podcast. So. Okay, so with that in mind then, what all are your new projects, stuff that are kind of coming down the pipes? Because I know you have quite a bit.
Well, I've got the hardcover, the paperback of Storm Furies, which is the 7th book of Tinker Elfhelm, just came out earlier this year. I've got the hardcover for the second book, The Black Ties and Wolves. The audio book is in the middle narration. I've gotten the narrator contact me a couple times doing things like, how do I pronounce this? And some other stuff. So it should be out soon. I've got the short story in the Swords and Larceny anthology, which will be out September 2nd, I think it is.
Oh, cool, the same day.
Yeah, and I've got lots of things up in the air, but none of them is actually finished, and that's the big problem.
But you're not bored.
Yeah. And I'll be at my MalHiCon, and I have the Patreon, and I think that's just about everything.
Where else can we find you on the internet?
Well, I don't like Facebook, but that's where I am elsewhere. And I have a website, onespencer.com. I try not to stay too much. I used to spend a lot of time on the internet chatting with writers and such, and I discovered I would spend all day chatting. And I actually have this problem that with the Patreons, I'll be like washing the dishes and like, dear Patreons, this is what I'm doing today, blah, 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 blah. Okay, I'm going to go back and write this all up. And I'm like, no, that's pretty stupid and boring. I'm not going to bother them with that. I know that's part of the whole chatting, trying to translate into daily post, multiple daily post. But I'm like, no, I should be writing real stuff, not these endless nattering about everything under the sun.
Well, I am sure that it is appreciated. And I so appreciate your time. Thank you so much. This has been wonderful. I
Thank you
thoroughly
for
enjoyed the
having me.
book. Yeah, I'm so excited for it to come out. So, as a reminder to everyone, September 2nd is the drop date, Black Tie and Tails. If you've not read it, go pick up book 1, Black Wolves of Boston. Read that one. If you decide to pick up a book 2, I didn't struggle. It was awesome. So go ahead and do that if you don't have time to read both, but go get the first one. It'll be available wherever books are sold. Baen has the DRM free ebooks available on their website. And go follow Wen's Patreon. And MilHiCon in Denver is Halloween weekend this year. And I should be there as well. So come say hi to Wen, and I think it'll be a really good weekend. So, anything else you want to leave us with before I let you go?
They told me yesterday that they're reissuing the first of the Elf Home books, Tinker, as a trade paperback again sometime this spring. So for those of you who want a hard actual copy in your hands, it's coming out. So
awesome. All right. Well, congratulations. Thank you so much. And I hope your release is amazing. So,
okay. Thank you so much.
Have a good one.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And now, as promised, one jump ahead. John Moore is a nanotech-enhanced soldier of fortune. Lobo is an AI, a living weapons and intelligence platform of enormous destructive potential. Two very dangerous wolves in a galaxy of deadly corporate and paramilitary predators. But Moore has grown weary of the killing, and just once he'd like to finish a job without leaving a trail of blood behind him. Not going to happen. Not on a pristine planet called Macon, where two gigantic corporations vie for control of the local jump gate and access to the riches of an undeveloped world. Dealing with a kidnapping and extortion scheme is only the beginning for Moore and Lobo as they work to stay one jump ahead.
Chapter 8. The first wave of squidlets hit Lobo's hull a little less than a minute after we touched down on Florden. A commendably quick response given that we were in a clearing a full 2 clicks from Osterlad's mansion and had come in as hard and as fast as we could manage. Of course, the speed of the attack meant they were on us before we'd accomplished much. Lobo had fired 4 corner anchor bolts into the freshly scorched ground, opened his center floor hatch, and sprayed the dirt with coolant. I was out of the crash couch and had led the Stealthy into position. It was beginning to burrow down, sucking dirt through its digging tentacles and onto Lobo's floor, and then they hit. "Let's see how it looks," I said. Lobo patched the feeds from the ring of sensors we'd planted a few seconds before impact and a corresponding ring of video popped onto the cool gray walls opposite where I was watching the Stealthy make its way into the ground. "Audio," I said. "You could have asked for the whole feed in the first place," he grumbled. A moment later, the sounds of the attack crashed from his hidden speakers. I'd learned to tolerate the emotive programming Lobo's customization team had built into him. I also put up with more than I might have otherwise because he's a veteran. But there were times, such as this one, when I could really do without the sarcasm. On the displays, a couple dozen squidlets crawled over Lobo's smooth surface, each probing the reinforced metal for the hair-thin lines that even the best hatches inevitably leave. Squidlets are hybrids of meat tentacles coupled to metal exoskeletons, a variety of acid and gas nozzles, and a small cluster of comm and sensor circuits. Each arrived as a round missile, opened a few seconds before impact, used the gas jets to slow enough that its tentacles had time to unfurl, and then stuck to whatever it hit. Normally, each would carry an explosive payload in addition to the acid and detonate when sensors, comm signals, or timers gave the command. But I knew Osterlad wouldn't risk damaging Lobo more than he could possibly avoid. The whole point would be to capture the PCAV so he could sell it or use it. Some of the acid was for forcing open the hatches. The rest was for removing me. Another round of squidlets popped onto Lobo's hull. So many of the weapons were crawling on his exterior that I couldn't get a clear count. The normally faint, slow slurping noise they made as their tentacles dragged them along the hull made it sound through the speakers like we were being digested by some shambling creature large enough to swallow Lobo whole. Even though I knew 1/2 meter of armor separated the crew area where I stood from the squidlets outside, I still tasted the tang of adrenaline, and the hairs on my arms tingled with nervous energy. "Can you feel them, Lobo?" "Not the way you feel, John. Not as best as I understand humans. But I have enough hull sensors to detect the motion, and once they find the few hatch seams on my exterior, the acid will start affecting my internal circuits." "Give 'em a jolt," I said. "A hard one." "You understand it probably will not destroy them," Lobo said. "Yes, but if we don't try to fight back, Osterlad's men will know something's up, and besides, we have to use some power now so they'll believe you're running out of it later." Lobo didn't bother to answer. The displays and speakers illustrated his response. The air popped with electricity. Streaks of blue arced all over his hull, and almost all the squidlets slid off onto the clearing around us. I checked the Stealthy's progress. Its top was about 20 centimeters below ground level, and it was spraying dirt around its flank. It was almost as low as it would go without me. The squidlets resumed their climb up Lobo. A few weren't moving, which made me happy. Those things were expensive, even for a dealer like Osterlad. Most, though, were on the move again, which meant he was true to his reputation and carried good stuff. These meat/mech combos were engineered to handle strong current and a great many other forms of attack. The shock Lobo gave them would have reduced any off-market squidlets to metal and fried meat, or at the very least caused them to lose some function. The outlines of 2 squidlets flashed yellow in the displays. Lobo signed that their paths would take them to seams. "My new friend, the Frontier Coalition weather satellite for this section of Florden, has warned me of the appearance of major heat signatures not far from Osterlad's home," Lobo said. "These suggest his men will launch interceptor ships in a moment. Once they achieve medium orbit, I will not be able to outrun them." The Stealthy had stopped digging and opened its lid, beckoning me. I looked at the large, pale brown metal lozenge and shook my head. "You owe me for this, Lobo," I said. "What can I owe you?" You already own me. I sighed. When I want a little emotive programming, I get facts. It's only an expression. I hate this plan. It is your plan.
This has been the Bane Free Radio Hour. Thanks for joining us at the heart of science fiction. On the next episode of the Bane Free Radio Hour, Griffin Barber interviews Marisa Wolf on her fantasy novel, A Plague of Magic. And, of course, we bring you more of Mark Van Name's John and Lobo novel, One Jump Ahead. Score by Ruth Judkowitz.